An eastern Iowa woman has filed a complaint that says 1st District Congresswoman Mariannette Miller-Meeks doesn't actually live where she says she does. Miller-Meeks was elected in 2020 for the Southeast Iowa Congressional District. It was now back then known as District 2, and it covered this particular area. But the following year, her home, Ottumwa, was no longer in the district. It had moved over to District 3, and she would have had to face Republican Zach Nunn in a primary election. Instead, in 2022, she ran in eastern Iowa's 1st Congressional District while saying that her home was in Ottumwa, but she actually lived in LeClaire, which is near Davenport right there. KCRG TV9 State Capitol reporter Connor Hendricks looked into a congressional ethics complaint that says Miller-Meeks is violating state voting laws and whether any action could be taken against her.
I spent over a decade of my treasure, my talent, and my time to flip this district.
Mariannette Miller-Meeks had said that she would move to Iowa's 1st district when congressional redistricting meant that her longtime Ottumwa home was no longer in the district that she wanted to represent. Former Democratic Congressman Dave Loebsack made a similar decision when he and his wife moved from Mount Vernon to Iowa City.
It wasn't so much of a sacrifice, but it was a sacrifice. There's no question about that. But I thought I should do that for my constituents. I thought I owed it to them.
We obtained the complaint filed with the Office of Congressional Ethics. It claims Miller-Meeks still lives in Ottumwa, but is voting in Davenport. For more than 20 years, Miller-Meeks and her husband Curtis have lived at this home in Ottumwa. In 2022, Miller-Meeks changed the address of her voter registration to the home of a state senator in LeClaire. Now, she claims the address of this Davenport apartment on her voter registration. Despite claiming a Scott County address for the past 2 years, Miller-Meeks continues to use her Ottumwa address for some things. It's on her statement of candidacy form for this election. An Ottumwa P.O. box is listed as her address on the Iowa Secretary of State's 2024 candidate list. She also donated to a Virginia congressional candidate in December and used an Ottumwa address. But that doesn't necessarily mean that she did anything wrong if she's claiming Davenport as her primary residence. It can get confusing, but will Miller-Meeks get investigated? Donald Sherman used to be a U.S. House Ethics Committee attorney. He says the committee usually deals with much more serious allegations of misconduct. The House could, in theory, remove someone for lying about where they live, but he doubts that would happen.
It remains to be seen, what might happen here, but it's not of the kind that I have seen the OCE report to the Ethics Committee with any regularity.
We also check state law. There's nothing that simply states that you have to spend a certain number of nights each week at a place to count that as your residence. This complaint was filed by an 87-year-old woman in LeClaire, and I gave her a call. We wanted to ask why she filed this complaint and also ask her if she worked in conjunction with any Democratic groups to do it, but she never returned my call. In Des Moines, Connor Hendricks, KCRG TV9 News.
And in a statement, Miller-Meeks' campaign says she has a residence in Scott County. The Miller-Meeks campaign saying it is no surprise that Democrats waited this close to the election to use an 87-year-old widow to file a frivolous complaint. The campaign further says she and her husband retained their property in Ottumwa, just as her opponent, Democratic opponent Christina Bohannon, also retains out-of-state property in Sarasota, Florida.